Thomas, called Didymus, preached the gospel in Parthia and India, where exciting the rage of the pagan priests, he was martyred by being thrust through with a spear. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Steven.
So this is still early in the podcast.
Yeah.
And so this is not necessarily something that would happen this early. So I'm not going to pretend like this came in the mail, even though it did.
Okay.
Even though it did come in the mail. But
I feel like we always throw people for a loop in the beginning.
I know.
We don't even know what to expect, and I know they don't.
Well, and it's funny too because I feel like a lot of it is like, well, they definitely talked about everything that they're talking about now.
Yeah.
But the truth is like some of it we actually just surprise each other.
Yeah. I feel like big picture, yes, we've talked about all of this stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
But then when it comes down to it, it's like, oh, we're just kinda, it's like not off the cuff, but it is kind of off the cuff.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of back and forth of like, hey, do you have something? Okay, don't tell me.
Yeah, it surprised me.
Yeah. And then it's like, no, okay, tell me this time so I can work on something.
Yeah.
It just depends, you know? So, but this time, something did come in the mail.
Okay.
But it did not come from a viewer. Because the viewers don't know where they can send stuff to us.
That's true.
So,
except for Paul at martyrsrow.com.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, so if you have
I can't receive physical mail.
Well, you can.
Physical mail through that email?
Yeah, it's a new thing that Gmail's doing. Google.
It's called a printer.
It's they 3D print things into your inbox.
That would be pretty
From
sick.
your inbox.
That would be pretty cool, actually.
I mean, that's coming.
Hopefully.
Right? 3D printer in your house, and then it just
automatic. It's a fax machine.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. A material fax machine. That'd be wild.
That would actually be really cool.
Yeah. But, so if you want to send us something, then you can go to youtube.com/martyrsrow and try and send us something.
Try it.
I think YouTube will receive it. You could just ship it directly to YouTube /martyrsrow. That's how that works, right?
I have no clue.
P.O. box.
Is that a P.O. box?
I think that's what a P.O. box is.
It's youtube.com.
/whatever your podcast is called.
It's worth a shot.
So if you want to send us something, then you can do that. No, okay. So, Paul, I have a gift for you.
Yeah.
Did you catch on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's the thing. And I was hoping you were going to do this, actually. But if you know Paul, then you know, or I guess if you've watched the podcast a couple times, you know that Paul, I think, only has one hat.
You know, it's so funny. I actually have a few hats, but this one, it was my first hat.
Ever?
Not ever, but pretty close to.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I couldn't wear hats for the longest time.
Why?
Like, they just didn't look good on me.
Okay, I understand that.
And this was the first hat that I think looked okay on me. And it's just conformed to my head.
I understand.
And so whenever I put a new hat on, it's like, it's just not broken in yet. It doesn't make me look the way this hat makes me feel.
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have like really curly hair too.
I do, which doesn't help.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, or it does, depending on the hat.
That's fair.
But
so you can see I've got this like growth coming on the side.
But now the thing is your hat is pink, or it was pink. I don't really know what color it is right now.
I don't either.
But all of a sudden there's a badge on top.
Oh, yup.
What happened? Why is there a badge on top?
Someone, so if you know me, especially recently, you know that I get into this habit sometimes where I get really focused in work and with the podcasting, all this, and then I just forget to eat.
Oh, okay.
And so this has been happening for the last like month or so.
Is that a meal ticket?
It's food stamps.
It's a golden ticket.
And I've been traveling a lot, so I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy a lot of groceries
Okay.
if I'm going to go out of town.
I have no idea where you're going with this.
Okay, which is great.
There's a medallion on your hat, and you're talking about groceries.
Yeah, believe it or not, it actually all follows.
Okay.
It leads to your answer.
That's interesting.
And so so I just don't have a lot of groceries at home.
Okay.
I do now because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be home for a little bit so I can buy some food. So
Yeah.
I'm getting better.
Good.
Thanks.
Congrats.
So then I just was not eating, and my friends knew this.
Okay.
At least people that I hang out with, right? They're like, "Did you eat today?" I'm like, "No," and of course these are all women typically, because men aren't like, "Did you eat today?"
There's just women walking
Women are
around
just
your
like,
house
"Have you
going,
eaten?"
have you
And
eaten?
I was like, "No." So I was at
They're just there to shame you.
I was at one of my friends. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. One of my friends' house, and they're like, "Did you eat today, Paul?" I was like, "No, I haven't eaten yet."
What
And
prompts
so-
that question though?
I don't know.
That's really weird to just be like.
I think they just care about me. They're like, he looks malnourished. Their motherly instincts just kick in, and they're like, that boy has to
Paul,
eat.
you look like you have not eaten. Well,
Like, thanks.
thanks. Yeah.
So they're like, you're going to eat. I'm like, no, you don't have to. That's fine. Like, no, you need to eat. So
Okay.
they made me food,
Okay.
and I ate it, and it was really good. And so and I was like, oh, it's food.
I forgot what this
And
tastes like.
so they were so proud of me for having eaten that they
They gave
put
you a
this
medallion.
sticker.
And it stayed there.
Yeah, and I just kept it.
How does it stay there though? I don't.
I'm actually the most surprised about that. So they just gave me this sticker
And
as
it's
like a
just
little
stayed
prize
there.
for eating.
So you're just waiting until it falls off.
Yeah.
It's like the balloon that went to the ceiling and no
It
one
just
gets
kinda
it down.
stays
You
there.
just kind of wait for it.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, isn't that in The Office?
Is it?
They like the warehouse calls upstairs at one point, and they're like, "It's falling," and everybody runs downstairs,
To watch it fall.
and it slowly comes down. The helium leaks out
That's
of it.
incredible.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a gift for you.
Oh,
This is funny
I'm so excited.
because I feel like this is a staple thing. Like if you know Paul in real life, then the hat is like, yeah, thank you for bringing up the hat. But since you're podcast listeners, you may not know about the hat. So I'm bringing you in the loop.
Welcome to the loop.
All right, so here's the thing. I actually got one for both of us,
Ooh.
but they're slightly different. And the one I wanted to get you, the one that I got, is actually better for you.
Okay.
So I kept the one I wanted to get.
I love it.
I don't know if that makes sense.
I think so. Let's go.
So this one that one's mine. This one is yours.
Yes. This is actually better. You're right.
I know. That's what I'm,
This is
Okay.
amazing.
so
Little unboxing vid.
yeah. So viewer, this is a black hat. And you can see this is the one that I was like, "Oh, I saw this and I was like, I need to get this for Paul."
This is amazing.
And then I saw this one.
This pink hat.
Then I saw this one and I was like, "No, this one's actually better for Paul."
That's so good.
Cuz like I'm pretty sure the hat you're wearing was that color.
It was pretty close.
And now it's not.
All right, this is the old trade out. You ready?
The old trade out. Okay, I'll commentate. Well, you got to get it right though.
It's true.
You got to get it right. I mean, this is and I intentionally I typically wear hats. So I intentionally didn't wear a hat because we have to wear these hats for this episode.
I'm getting rid of this pink hat. This ex-pink hat.
You don't have to get rid of it.
I'm going to keep it because I still like it.
You're going to put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
You can put it up before the medallion falls off.
Oh, that'd be
Then it
cool.
won't fall
It'll
off.
never fall.
Yeah. But here's the other thing. If that hat doesn't feel right, don't feel bad about not wearing it.
No, this is one I feel like I have to break it in.
You have to. I
I'm
mean,
like,
it's a pretty good.
It feels
pretty good
really
hat.
nice.
Yeah, it feels broken in.
Yeah, it does.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, Paul is trying on the hat. Well, you have to you're not going to do anything to it? You have to
It actually feels really nice. Just stock. Like, this actually feels great.
just stock.
Yeah. Does Does it look good?
I
I can't really see.
I feel like you need to tighten it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because it's like, I mean, hats are one size fits all, but at the same time, it's like you got to kind of make it fit to your head a little bit. So, like, these are, if you're just listening, these are dad hats. That's the understood style of this hat, which basically just means that, like, you can shove this hat into the back of your pants or in your back pocket, and it doesn't really matter. That's probably still too tight, yeah.
Yeah, it does feel a lot better now.
You also have to, like, round the bill out a little bit. But yeah. It's a little taller.
It feels
than I thought.
great.
Oh, mine's not. I don't
It
know.
feels really
the
good.
bill is like, the funny thing is, like, the people that are watching the camera, like, the thing is we can't see ourselves except there is
Like barely
there
through a
is
window.
a piece of glass, so we're like kind of looking, but
You guys
yeah.
are getting a better view than we are.
Yeah, for sure. And you're like, no, both of you need to throw those hats away. Well,
Maybe
we're
I'm
not.
a dad hat guy.
You know, we're gonna at some point. Here's the thing: these are the hats that we're wearing for the rest of the
episode.
episode.
It feels really nice on my head.
Whether we wear them again ever is, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. No.
How about, like, give us a like if you want us to keep wearing them.
Give us a like if you want us to keep wearing them, and give us a comment if you want us to throw them away.
What if we did, like?
Don't dislike it, just like it.
What if we did, like, if 20 people comment wear the hat, that we have to wear them every episode for the next, like, 10 episodes?
Oh, dang. Hope my memory's that good.
I mean, you guys decide that. We'll figure it out.
We're ready. Let's do it. I'm down for it.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, here we go.
Hey.
Hey, nice hat, Paul.
Thanks, dude. Nice hat to you as well.
Thanks, man.
It's a good look.
Thanks.
Dad hat.
Dad
I love
hat.
that. Dad
Ooh,
hat.
that should be the song.
Oh, dad hat.
Oh, dad hat. You even sang it.
Dad hat.
We need to plug that in.
Oh, yeah. You guys couldn't hear that. It's truly acoustic.
Are you ready for this? This is the rawness of Martyr's Row. You get to hear the pop. Just kidding. We'll edit that so you don't have to hear all that.
We'll add a pop.
Let me see if it's working. Yeah, I think so. All right, this is the writing corner.
Welcome.
Not the writing corner.
No.
That's not what we
The
call
song
it.
corner?
I don't know. We're not really in a. I guess this whole room is a corner.
You know what's funny to me? Everything's in a corner.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's funny because I feel like when we started this section,
Mm-hmm.
it was with the intent of writing a theme song. And then to this point now, it's more of like, hey, I have a new idea for something fun. And we've just abandoned the theme part of it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We do
I feel
pretty.
like eventually we'll...
Well, I think
It's like each... Oh, sorry. Keep going. Did you have something you want to say? I will too.
we should try and do that one episode. We just never finish a thought. It's just you keep starting and I start and then you start.
So
I think this is the laugh corner.
it is.
We've probably laughed in this segment more than anywhere else.
That's so true.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I think that we've still, like, stayed on theme for the most part.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a theme for the episode is what it's become a little bit.
No, I mean maybe.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
Martyr's
it's like
Row.
instead of developing like one idea is what I mean. It's
That's
more
true.
of like, yeah, here's a brand new fresh idea.
That's true. That's
Which
a good
I
point.
like it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably just, like, by the time they see this episode, we might just clip every song
Yeah.
and then just put them up, and you guys won't listen to them. We just put them up.
It's for us.
Yeah. Yeah, just every clip
It's
is
more of like a catalog.
But we can cut it down to where it's just the part of the writing segment where we don't actually sing the song.
You got to come to the episode to hear the song.
Yeah. The song payoff doesn't happen unless you watch the episode. That would be wild.
That'd be kind of crazy.
It's like anti-clips.
Did you want to hear this mediocre idea?
Well, here's how we got there. But no payoff. Oh, man. Well, okay, so I kind of have an idea.
Let's go.
But Dad Hat sounds fun. But then that's like, that kind of furthers
I feel like it's going to be like a funky.
Yeah. No, it's like yacht rock.
Yeah,
it's gotta be. I'm surprised there's not a. That sounds like an SNL sketch.
I feel like that could be a really cool album title. Dad Hat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, who would do that? Who's the guy? Not Keith Urban. Is it Keith Urban? There's like a maybe.
I think.
It's like I don't remember. There's a country artist who's like mostly out on a boat, but it's not Keith Urban.
Are you thinking of?
It's right at the front of my.
Margaritaville guy?
No, he's too old. He doesn't
think
care
of his
about
name
dad
right now
hats.
No.
Tommy Bahama.
Tommy Bahama.
Oh, what is his name?
Leave a comment below.
Yeah.
Who's the boat guy?
Leave
Country
a comment
boat guy.
below if you're frustrated with us.
They're like, come on.
Okay, to the song.
Which, here's the fun part about this, too, is you're like, I have an idea. Here, Paul, you play guitar.
Yeah. That's
and it's
true.
kind of fun, because I think it's like, oh, neither of us know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think we did that the last episode.
Yeah.
But that was like real-time writing.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know
So
if
like
we
I just
talked
had
about
a
it.
progression, and then you just sang over top of it. With
Maybe we
lyrics
did
you
talk
had.
about it after. I don't remember.
We may have after.
Yeah. Let's get really
That was
quiet
last-
so they
that
can't
was
hear what
last
we're saying.
Oh, yeah, guys.
Let's just talk over top of each other really quietly so they can't understand what we're saying.
just
And then, but then we'll talk loud and stop each other from talking. If you haven't tuned out yet, here's your chance.
You're a true Martyr's Row fan.
Yeah, which is a funny thing to say.
Yeah,
It's like,
it is.
I love Martyr's Row.
Sorry?
Yeah. Explain a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I do have an idea.
Okay.
I think E probably makes sense. Do you know how to do the open E thing?
You want like this guy?
Yeah. Now play it like Blink-182. Let me check if you're recording.
He's not even going through.
Playing.
Do you like something like that? Is it recording? Hey.
Let me see if I can remember it in my head, because it's like a... something like this. It'd be like, on Martyr's Row, we honor those who came before our faith heroes. On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row.
For you.
You always do that.
I was going to do a little turnaround. I thought there was more.
It's always like, yeah, all right, here it is.
And I was
then
like,
you change the progression.
Let me throw a little thing in there, and then we'll get into it. All right, I won't do that. I won't do that.
No, you can't. Well, you said turnaround, and then I just didn't listen to you.
That's right. I'm the MD right now. And we're no turnaround. One.
All right, let's try it again.
Okay.
I don't have any verses for this. We don't need verses.
Wait, who needs verses if you're in Martyr's Row?
I don't know. I'm just going to scream it.
Let's
That'll
cut
be
to
the
the
verse.
chase.
Yeah. Okay.
Same thing, but scream it.
Okay, deal. On Martyr's Row, we honor those who came before our faith heroes. On Martyr's Row, On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row.
Turn around.
On I like how your turnaround just a 4 and then right back to the
Not much time. But
You're like, and okay, let's try it again. I'll follow your turnaround this time.
I'm not going to do it this time.
Just call it and don't do it.
Or will I?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of on the beach.
You're not my real dad. You'll never understand me, Mom. Turn around.
You'll never understand me, Mom. Turn around.
Turn around. I feel like I need to do that in this song. Just shout out.
Yeah. Turn around.
Turn around.
Turn around.
Yeah. Every now and then.
Oh, what a song. Okay, now the acoustic's way too loud.
Uh-oh. It's a little distorted. It's good. It's good for
okay.
it.
Little out of tune, little distorted. All right,
you ready?
Sure.
I guess.
I'm loving this.
It's fun.
I'm loving it. Here we go.
You're gonna get
2,
copyright
1,
strike for
4.
that?
Here.
1, 2, 3. You're my stepdad.
You're my stepdad?
I don't know. I was gonna say you're not my real dad, and then I was like, nah.
Let me stay kind of positive.
It's a Christian podcast. That's the Christian email.
Yeah. Oof. All right.
Okay, here we go.
2, 3, 4. Turn around. On Martyr's Row, we honor those who came before our faith heroes. On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row.
Will I do it? Turn around.
I don't know how long it's gonna be.
I don't either.
1, 2, 3. On Martyr's Row. Turn around.
I can turn around anywhere.
All right, for real this time.
Okay.
2, 3, 4. I hope the stomping helps.
I hope so.
On Martyr's Row, we honor those who came before our faith heroes. On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row. On Martyr's Row, we honor those who came before our faith heroes. On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row. Halftime. On Martyr's Row, we honor those who came before our faith heroes. On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row.
Now real soft.
On Martyr's Row, we honor those who came before our faith heroes. On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row. On Martyr's Row, we honor those who came before our faith heroes. On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row. On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row. On Martyr's Row, on Martyr's Row.
I missed.
3, 2, 1. Whew. Gotta catch my breath.
That was wild.
It was wild. Yeah, hat's still on.
You know they had to be.
All right, Paul, let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
I have a question for you.
I'm ready.
Last episode, we left off a little, a little bit of a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Maybe Maybe it was a soft cliff, a hill,
Is we totally
a
divert?
hill hanger.
A hill hanger. A slope.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Always.
Are you sure?
No.
Paul? You're supposed to say, yes, Steven?
Yes, Steve. Yes, Steven.
Did you myth me? This episode's full of surprises.
Or surprises. Surprises.
Should I ask that again? I don't think you understood. I think you did understand.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, did you myth me?
I
The
did.
people want to know.
I actually wrote it down. The myth of Stephen.
I've been mythed.
You've been mythed.
Why does that feel
Dude,
so hard to say?
It's hard to give yourself a lisp.
Well, it's not a lisp. It's a word.
It is a word, but it feels like a lisp.
That's true. I'm just using it incorrectly.
Actually, how great would that be if we to be mythed?
You can be missed,
Yeah, but I want people to myth us.
but like M-I-S-T.
yeah.
I mean, M-I-S-T?
Wait,
Wrong emphasis.
wait. Why would you want to be missed?
I don't know. It'd be fun to be little particles of water.
It could be kind of cool.
Yeah, especially for the person receiving it.
Yeah, that's true. They would enjoy it.
Yeah, it would cool them down.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, did you miss me?
I missed you. Well,
The people want to know.
what's the deal with all the
Yeah, so myth. So
I can't even take it serious
I was
now.
gonna say, I feel like I broke Paul.
I'm trying to think of how do I make you into a myth.
Oh, that would be fun.
Gather around.
The tale of Stephen Howell.
I feel like on our next like Martyr's intro,
Yeah,
it'll just be a myth that we wrote about you.
we could end episodes with myths.
That could be fun.
We start with, and that's actually a good point. Like, are the stories that we're reading, why aren't those myths?
Yeah. That's a good question.
I mean, I have the answer.
Yeah, answer it.
Well, because like on the last episode, we read like a myth has to have a supernatural element in it.
Did it say it has to or is it often?
It said it often includes supernatural
Okay.
beings and events.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of a qualifier a little bit
Yeah.
in that realm.
Something fantastical.
Yeah. Yeah, that's more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I still think yeah, I guess depending on what your tradition is, maybe that could be a myth. I don't know.
It just made me think of the Muppets. No, myth.
Yeah. I wrote this thing down, but
Yeah.
it's pretty serious. And
Let's jump in.
Okay.
Let's do it. Make it serious.
so here's the thing. And I wrote it down because that's the easiest way for me brain to think. I think I broke Paul.
This has been quite the adventure for me today.
This podcast was for Paul.
I'm broken.
Oh, it's awesome. Okay, so we kind of set up what a myth was in the last episode.
Yeah.
Right? And then the goal was to get into some myths and look at the ways that myth in and of itself is the way that cultures kind of tell their history. And so one of the things I was thinking about and just kind of like train of thought, just kind of wrote this down, but basically I think those who say life doesn't have to be that complicated, or they might say to you all the time, like people say to me, you're overthinking it, or it all has to be simpler than that.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it simpler than that? Aren't you overthinking it? And to those people, I would quote Paul. Not this Paul.
Oh.
Ephesians 6:12. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. This doesn't mean it's complicated. It simply means that what is actually going on is not what you see, but only the effects of it. So, like, I feel like one of the things for me, and this is something that I feel like you and I bonded over, was this idea that, like, how do we talk about all of the things that are actively happening when we start to realize that everything that's happening is an effect of a dimension, a world, a reality that interacts with us at all times, but we can't really see it. We don't perceive it. And it's this, for lack of better word, it's a supernatural versus natural. So, like, it's something other than what is tangible or natural. And myth is the opportunity for us to tell the story of history, holding the natural reality in one hand and the supernatural world in the other. So myth gives us the opportunity to hold both the supernatural in one hand while holding the natural in the other. So you're holding both of these things at the same time. It's in fact the marrying of those two realities. History is natural fact. Myth ties the supernatural into the natural history. So if history is natural fact, meaning it's the tangible things that literally happened that people wrote down, just details, like I got up this morning at 6 o'clock and my alarm went off, and none of these things are supernatural, right? They're things that, like, I touched or experienced with my five senses. But the supernatural integrated into that is what myths allow us to perceive and understand and tell the things that we can't really explain with our five senses, and describe them to others in a way that is true to us but expresses something that's non-tangible. And that all sounds really complicated.
Yeah.
But if the truth is there is this concept of naturalism, and the naturalist belief is per Google AI bringing all this together. Naturalism is a philosophical theory that holds that nature is all that exists, and that all events and beings in the universe are natural. Naturalists believe that the natural world is explainable through natural laws, and that the scientific method is the best way to learn about it. The truth is if you're a naturalist alone, then Christ is foolishness. Because if you're a naturalist, the only place where Jesus enters in is for 33 years in the span of history.
Yeah.
Right? So that can be proven from a naturalist standpoint. And in fact, the more it's proven from a naturalist standpoint, the more it brings validity to the faith.
Yeah.
The difficulty is the resurrection in a naturalist view.
Yeah.
And so to a naturalist, Jesus is foolishness. And Paul even says this. To the Greek, he's foolishness. And to the Jew, he's a stumbling block.
Yeah.
And so a naturalist Christian is kind of an oxymoron, which is interesting. So you can hold these two things together, natural and supernatural, but if we let go of the supernatural, if we let go of myth, that ties the two things together, the natural and the supernatural.
Yeah.
So natural history tied in with supernatural events that are laced within that, which would create a myth or a story of history that includes supernatural events.
Yeah.
If we can't have those two things together, then a myth is necessarily false. Or, like we explained in the last episode, a fairy tale.
Yeah.
But we know historically that fairy tales are designed to give an opportunity to tell a moral or to give an example of like how you should live,
some
things you
behavior.
should or shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not what myth is.
Right.
Myth is true history blended with supernatural events in order to explain things that we know as Christians. As Paul says in Ephesians 6, there are things happening that are affecting the five senses, but as a byproduct.
Yeah.
It's not happening first in the natural world. It's happening in this other space. And what's happening in that other space in the present darkness is affecting and warring against the natural space.
Yeah.
And so being a Christian naturalist is a bit of an oxymoron. The interesting thing is when we talk about salvation and you ask, well, what am I being saved from? Like, what is it that I'm being saved from? Well, if you're being saved, if you believe that you are saved, but you're a naturalist, then theoretically there's nothing to be saved from. What you're being saved from is supernatural.
Yeah.
So in the midst of that, what you are being saved from is supernatural. Even if you are saved, we all die, and in the end in the natural world. So the natural space dies, right? So if the natural space dies, then what we are being saved from is death after death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is supernatural.
Yeah.
Because death once is natural. Death twice is supernatural.
Yeah.
So like it kind of all in one. It's like we all have to die. The earth, the natural will all pass away. The Bible says the word will remain. The word of God, Jesus, will remain. So when this natural life dies, the supernatural becomes our new natural.
Yeah.
So what was once supernatural or extra natural, non our five sense reality, once we die out of this trapped to the five senses body, then our new reality is what is currently the supernatural. So I started all this by saying, people tell me life's not that complicated. And then I went through this complicated response of how simple it actually is.
Yeah.
There's natural, there's supernatural. They both exist.
That's great.
But if we say that everything can be understood just by what we experience with our five senses, then it's in some ways anti-biblical. It's ignoring what's actually happening, which can't be observed, but only we see the effects of with our natural senses.
Yeah.
So in that way, myth is the opportunity for us to hold the natural and the supernatural together in history. So it explains what has happened before now.
Yeah.
In a way that holds both the natural in one hand and the supernatural in the other. So a naturalist would look at myth and say it's the same category as a fairy tale.
Yeah.
And maybe they say, well, no, it's technically not, but it still didn't really happen.
Yeah,
And
there's still an element of made up to it.
Right. And the only reason they would say that, and the only reason people would say that, is because there are supernatural or non-quantifiable events.
Yeah.
However, in those mythical stories, there are natural events that occurred, and And those natural events that occurred, a lot of them, we still see the effects of.
Yeah.
Or potentially we look back and go, you look at the fall of Rome, or you look at the fall, you look at the fall of civilizations, and you go, I literally, like, you could go there and put your hand on it.
Yeah.
And go, this used to be a civilization.
Mm-hmm.
But the myth of what it used to be, if it includes fantastical things, then we just go, oh, well, we just don't really know what happened.
Yeah.
Well, they're telling us what happened.
Yeah.
So why is it not true if it includes fantastical things?
Yeah. That's a fascinating idea. And it's funny, I want to touch on this really quick too, which I think is fun, is the simple versus complicated.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it's like, oh, it's a complex answer to explain why it's all so simple. But I think it's funny, it's like the only reason it's complex is because we've removed a part of reality. You know what I mean? So it's like, for us, simple to the naturalist, let me say it that way.
Yeah.
Simple means only focus on the part that I'm comfortable with.
Sure.
But it's like, but that's not simple. That's just half the story.
Yeah.
So it's like, what you're saying isn't actually simple. It's just not the full story.
Yeah.
Because I think with the way we approach it with this spiritual natural view, it's like it's the both things in connection with one another. It actually is simple.
Right.
But we've made it complicated.
Yeah.
Because we've removed it.
Yeah, you're not allowing terms to be defined.
Yeah.
If we define terms, then it's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is, like, even if you look at, like, Jesus being tempted in the wilderness, it's like, all right, well, the naturalist view would not allow for Jesus to be interacting with a spiritual entity.
Right.
Or a non-fleshly being.
Yeah.
And so the story from a naturalist perspective is he's
hallucinating
in the desert because he's fasting and in the heat, extreme heat in the day, extreme cold in the night. And you go, well, yeah, wait, you would hallucinate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably would.
You would. Yeah.
But why does hallucinating, like, why does a physical effect to your body, why is that not potentially a gateway to spiritual things?
Yeah.
I mean, think about even things like we've mentioned a lot, like ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Like any of these hallucinogenic experiences, you're doing something to your body that's causing your body to go into a state that is allowing an interaction to happen in your brain.
Yeah.
And in your thoughts, in your dream and vision state that is creating this experience. Well, it started by something physically happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of these things that, like, you read through scripture as people, like all of the prophets in the Old Testament, almost all of them did something physical to represent to the people what God was telling them about Jerusalem or Israel or whatever,
Yeah.
And so those stories feel fantastical because they're coming in and they're saying, no, God told me this for you.
Yeah.
But if we look at it, we go, well, that person just laid on their side for how many days in a row? Of course they're going to say something like that.
Yeah.
But maybe the physical posture and what that does to the body puts your mind and your body and everything, puts it down or puts it under in such a way where you can interact with the supernatural, with the spiritual.
Well, I mean, I think that's why there's such an emphasis in Scripture on being sober-minded.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is we're put in a place where our mind isn't sober.
Yeah.
Where we don't have like a more control over our minds. And so when that happens, like someone who's taking, especially like psychedelic drugs, or someone who's heavily influenced by alcohol or whatever you're maybe not eating for an extended period of time, and it's like you're in a weakened state and your mind isn't right. We'll say it that way. And it's like, I think that there's a lot of natural evidence as well. If you look at just people's stories, that shows like, oh, something something happens that's beyond just your mind making stuff up.
Right.
I mean, even the fact when we look at shared experiences, I think that's one of the biggest evidences for that, anecdotal evidences.
Sure.
But it's like, the fact that people can have the same experience in something, and they're not talking about it in the moment. It's just like, this is happening afterwards. Like, oh yeah, that exact thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Especially people that are unrelated sometimes.
Right.
It's like, well, yeah, because something real happened.
Yeah.
But it took you getting to a place where your mind wasn't right, where you weren't sober.
Sure.
To reach that place.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, something real happened. Something real that's supernatural.
Yeah.
Because it didn't happen in the natural.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why we nullify that experience to an individual.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, that's the thing is, like, if you look, and the funny thing is, like, it might sound like we're in some ways discounting dreams and visions and all these things, but in reality, I think that becomes a thin place. It's like,
I think so.
Like
yeah.
when the instruction is given to fast and to pray.
Yeah.
It's like what you're doing is you're limiting your body. You're limiting the five senses from being able to distract you from what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And you can interact with God in a way that's uninhibited.
Yeah.
By the natural space.
Yeah, especially because you're being put in a place where the natural isn't being fed.
Yeah.
So it needs to rely on something else. And I'm going in with the intent of saying, like, no, Lord, I want to rely on you.
Well, and that's where the thing, even like when you bring up sober-minded, I think that can, even what you just said, can sound contradictory to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because some people would be like, oh, well, if you're like, well, that's not a sober state. It's like, well, hang on. So be sober-minded, but then also fast and pray.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, these two things are not conflicting. Being sober-minded means don't go and take hallucinogenic drugs in order to meet with God.
Yeah.
It's be sober-minded. Don't ingest anything in order to meet with God. But restrict what you're ingesting so that the purity of your body and the purity of your state, once restricted, then the inhibitions are gone.
Yeah.
And you can interact in the supernatural space in a way you wouldn't be able to if you were feeding the desires of the flesh.
Yeah. Because, again, that goes back to...
So not feeding the desires of the flesh is not a bad thing.
Right.
But doing it non-sober-minded is bad.
Yeah, and I think...
that's a split. It's a fork in the road.
It is.
It's one way or the other.
But I think even when we look at the sober-mindedness view of it as well, it's like, it's also, look at Cain and Abel and their sacrifice.
Sure.
It's like, well, why was one accepted and one wasn't?
Yeah.
Well, it's because how did God tell you to do it?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big things in here, even on top of what you're saying, is, well, how did God tell you to meet with him?
Yeah.
Did he say, yeah, go take some psychedelics, do some shrooms, and then I'll be there?
Right.
He said, no, that's not how you do it.
Right.
You fast and you pray.
Yeah.
Like, that's how we meet in that kind of a space.
Yeah, and I think...
it's like when we do it that way, God honors that. But when we do it in our own power and we say, no, this is how I want to do it, then God won't honor that.
Yeah, and I think the mistake sometimes is going, well, if you don't do it that way, but if you go fork in the road and you don't do it the way that God said to do it, and by doing it, I mean fasting and praying, limiting the five senses, pushing to a place where your flesh is being put down. You're not seeking the desires of the flesh, but instead you're putting your flesh down, and in that way your body is being limited and you're able to interact with God in a pure way. If you fork in the road and go another route to do the same thing, why do we go, well, anything then over here that looks like some type of experience is just not real?
Oh, yeah.
Why do we go, oh, they like saw machine elves? It's like, all right, well, what if machine elves are actually kind of resemble biblical beings?
Right. And that's our language to describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually one guy's language to describe it.
True. Yeah.
One guy came up with that. But
no, but yeah,
and
I
that's
think you're
another
right.
episode.
It's funny because you just sparked that idea in my head. It's like when we look at the language of the description of spiritual beings in Scripture, that's their language to describe what they saw.
Yes.
So when we experience it, why would I use the same language?
Yeah.
I use my language to describe what I see.
Right. Yeah. And so, like,
Yeah.
if you look at that fork in the road and you go, all right, well, this is the way that I stay sober-minded and I put my flesh down and then I go and I meet with God. This is a way that other people have done it, and they seem to be meeting with something, but it must just not be real. Except that, like, if you read the Bible, there is a dark and there's a light. Mm-hmm. And the dark is the imitation. It is the I don't want to say false. What's the word I'm looking for?
Well, I think it's like the antithesis, maybe in some ways. That's not the word I like.
Yeah, I mean, imitation is probably the.
But it's kind of like us doing it in the way we want. It's that pride that steps in.
Yeah.
Us meaning anything that's not God.
But it's weird that we would go. I think what I'm getting at is it's weird that we would go, all right, let's go this way, and then we meet with God, and that's a supernatural experience. But when we go this way, all we're doing is manipulating the natural.
Yeah.
And it stops there.
Yeah.
And then you don't go like, oh, hang on. When you go this way,
why is that
you're having a supernatural experience. When you go this way, guess what? You're having a supernatural experience.
Yeah.
The problem is this way is light and this way is dark.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when the stories blended with supernatural events, but they look dark, we tend to call them myth, especially from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
But then if they go light, we call them religion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or we call them
that's true.
Tradition. But when they go dark, we call them myths. And or depending on where you're coming from.
Yeah. I think a lot of that's like those notions that have happened, I mean, looking especially through the Enlightenment.
Yeah.
Where it's a funny contradiction in modern church, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Where, exactly what you're saying, where God is the only supernatural one, and then everything else is not real.
Right.
Because every other thing is fake.
Yeah.
And it's
not
like
false. Fake.
Yeah. They say fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, so it can't be real. And if it is real, if by some chance I can't explain it naturally, then it's just a demon, write it off.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wait, pause.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, even the fact that that's a last resort possibility, it's still a possibility. Why can't we dive into that a little bit?
Sure. And I think some of it too is just the idea that like God is all of these things. It's like, I think we have a higher capacity to lean into all that God is and all of the light side. And then we just go like the dark side is like this big. And then everything else, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, well, not exactly. I mean, if a third of heaven fell,
right,
that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a very man-centric view.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's funny how that splits because like one of the things I think about is I think about the myth or the stories of mermaids. Where you go, all right, there are these sailors, there's all these stories. You have things like the Odyssey and the Iliad. You have these sirens.
Yeah.
And people will just go, oh yeah, well it turns out they were manatees.
Christopher Columbus.
Yeah. It's like
he writes about it in his journals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, well, hang on. What do you mean? Well, they were on the ship for a long time and they were malnourished or they were hot. They were like not sleeping well.
Yeah.
They had all kinds of diseases. And so when the manatees came up, they looked at them and thought that they were women with fins as feet. And you're like, yeah, I could see that. That's kind of crazy.
You know, it's funny. I recently just went kayaking.
Yeah.
And around this time, this is when the waters get a lot colder, so the manatees come in. And so there was about 20 of them in this area we were in, just swimming around. And you get real up close to them. They're breathing on you. Their tuna breath just hitting you. Like,
yeah.
It smells so
tuna
bad.
breath.
Yeah. and I'm looking at these things, and it's funny because we're making jokes. Like, oh, Christopher Columbus thought these were beautiful mermaids. Or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I don't think that happened. Like, look at that thing. I'd have to be... I don't think I could get messed up enough to think that was a beautiful woman.
Yeah, well, that's the thing,
Yeah.
right?
And it's like there's so many. I think there's a lot of assumptions that get made, which is kind of the direction we're headed with, especially the ancient writers of these myths, that
Yeah.
they were just dumb
Right.
and they just didn't know anything.
Yeah.
But it's like, all right, they're still people.
Right. Yeah. Well, and you look at it and you can go, all right, well, there's a natural understanding of this is like the sirens that would call to the sailors.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I could see that. Like if you've only seen water for weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is calling to me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's land. I'm gonna go this direction. And then what you find is actually something that would lead to their death. It's like,
Yeah.
there's this is not where you need to go. You need to go to another place. And then you go, all right, well, yeah, that's just them hallucinating. Okay, but if they are hallucinating, does the hallucination actually lead to a reality that's supernatural and not natural? That when they're hallucinating, there's a veil that's thinner, and they're actually seeing into they're actually seeing into a reality that's not natural.
Yeah.
But that is supernatural, and so they're seeing on the other side of the veil.
Yeah.
So hallucination maybe is not just like your brain playing tricks on you, but the veil getting thinner.
That's an interesting idea. I like that.
Especially when you look at in the conversation of things like myth. Because when you look at that, it's like, all right, well, there's these supernatural things happening, but there's natural circumstances leading up to this person being in a state where like it seems like the veil is thin wherever they are.
Yeah.
And they're like leaning into like this thing or that thing, because that's the other thing is like the thing that we ignore is things like the water. Yeah. Like the water is represented in the Bible as so many things going all the way back to the very first thing, which is just chaos itself. Mm-hmm. That water,
that's not exclusive to the Bible either.
Right. Yeah. So like water is representative of chaos, and there are these sea monsters. Yeah. These water monsters that live in this space. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the whole argument of like, why am I so afraid to go in the water? Yeah. Like if I think about going in the ocean at night long enough, I can terrify myself. Absolutely. And there's something about that.
It's funny because like even, and maybe this is just me, but it's like even when I look on like YouTube, and it's like, oh, let me look at like deep sea diving. Yeah, it's terrifying to watch.
I don't even want to see the things that, like I don't want it to be dark and then all of a sudden there's something there. Yeah. No, thank you.
Or like this might be silly, but like in Finding Nemo. Yeah. That scene where he's just in open ocean. Yes. It's like there's something haunting about this.
There is.
And it's like, well, why is that? Why? Because that seems to be almost universal. Yeah. Throughout history. Right. Why is there this strangeness that we have toward this water? Yeah. Open water.
Yeah. So if water is chaos. And we see that as a biblical understanding, that the water was tamed in the creation story. Yeah. It was separated. It was told where to go, where to be, right? And then we see it all through the scripture as water was like the portal or the gateway to Sheol. It was like when the water stirred, something was happening, and all of that stuff with the water. But you're saying it's not just in the Bible. Yeah. Where else is it, Paul?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. Yeah. And this is a really cool setup. I'm glad that you went down that path. I really am. And so, because I want to call attention before we dive into some of that. Yeah. Kind of tying in from our previous episode about language. Okay. Because that's where we're headed into like this language, this idea of myth. Yeah. And it brings up a few questions, and one of them is like, why do these things seem to be kind of universal? Huh. It's like, why are these thoughts shared? Right. And what's interesting to me is that most linguists agree that every language today stems back to one common language,
Oh, okay.
which they call proto-human,
Yeah.
or like first human language.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting about that to me is there's that preconceived notion that we have held for a while that everyone back then was
Right.
just stupid. And if you go back further to like first humans, they were just like making hand gestures and clicking noises.
Yeah.
And like that, I think that's where, no matter if you're a Christian or not, it's like we have that idea in the back of our head
Sure.
to some extent. It's funny because it's like you'll ask. I think a lot of modern Christians today. I'm painting with a broad stroke here, where it's like, oh, okay, so do you believe in Adam and Eve? Well, yeah, I do. I think those are the first humans. Like, okay, so what about people back then? Well, they didn't know what they were talking about because they weren't as smart as we are.
Yeah.
It's like, those are two very different ideas that you just said
Yeah.
that are contradictory.
Yeah.
And it's a huge assumption, especially when we look at these ancient civilizations dating back thousands and thousands of years.
Right.
It's like, yeah, these weren't dumb people.
Right.
Like, there's no way you can build these things and you just make hand gestures and clicking noises.
Yeah.
And so, for me, the other thing that's interesting about language...
Or the hand gestures and clicking noises weren't extremely sophisticated.
Right. That's also true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that we think that's so primitive you can't do anything with it.
Yeah. Do you think, like, brief aside, do you think that it's just because in our small scope, what we experience all the time is a kid is dumb?
I think so.
And as they grow, they get smarter.
Yeah. As they learn something.
Yeah. Do you think we just project it on history?
Absolutely.
And just go, well, when the earth was young.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Also, it makes sense because if in a naturalist, if we remove the spiritual, the supernatural,
yeah,
then it makes sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if we're just out here fending for ourselves, it's like, well, yeah, no one knows how to do anything. We just got here. We're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, true.
And so we remove the idea that there could have been a supernatural element that taught us stuff.
It's almost like a supernatural view of history.
Yeah.
Allows for God to have placed people here with intelligence.
Absolutely.
Potentially more intelligent than us currently, arguably.
Mm-hmm.
And more well fit for the creation than us. And then it allows for that to actually devolve.
Yeah.
And then try to get better. Versus a naturalist view would say that there was a starting point and then everything grows like a child.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because I think if we want to hold to Scripture as Christians, I think we have to some extent, leave open the possibility that there's a supernatural teaching that happens.
Sure.
Even to the point where, let's look at Adam and Eve in the garden.
Yeah.
Well, it says that God walked with them.
Yeah.
What do you think they were talking about? Adam and God named the animals together. Yeah. And it's like, well, that's teaching. Like, there's instruction happening. Yeah. It's like there's a level of creation of them creating together. Right. Which you've brought up before. And I think even if we just look at that picture, it's like, yeah, there's a passing of information that's happening. It's like he's learning the earth. He's learning, and it's like our job was to take care of it. Yeah. How are we supposed to take care of it if we're the dumbest thing made on it? Yeah. It's like, I think that even just taking the Christianity alone and not even jumping into anything that's even more assumptive. Yeah. It's like, well, let's just look at this. Sure. It's like, yeah, God walked with Adam. You don't think that he taught him anything? Right. And then we look at that. We've talked about the serpent. Yeah. And it's like, there's a ton of room, and we see that even in Ezekiel, that it's like there were beings in the garden as well. Right. You don't think they learned anything from each other? Right. Yeah, they just didn't talk to each other. Yeah, they're just like, you just be over there, and I'm just going to figure out how fire works. Yeah. Exactly. I think that's so silly. Right. And there's no evidence really that I don't think that we really see a lot of evidence for that even happening. Sure. Now, that being said, there are tribes that we see that there's information they don't have. Yeah. But that's because there was a separation that happened where they were pulled off from the main group and they had to figure it out again.
Yeah, and we have like
or like a restarting of civilization. We see that even in the
we
early
have that history.
colonization in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's like, well, where are the poets in early American history?
Yeah.
Well, they don't exist because they're trying to farm the land.
Right. Yeah.
They're trying to take dominion over their place.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so going back to the language side of it, what's interesting to me is that, and this is a main thing with history, is like we only know what's been written.
yeah.
Like when we look at archaeology, it only confirms what's been written.
Right.
I heard this. I don't remember if I brought this up on this podcast before, but even when we look at Egyptian history, we've only discovered 1% of it.
That's crazy.
And like, where do we get that from? Well, it's because we see other stuff that's written about it in this long line of pharaohs.
Yeah.
But we've only ever uncovered 1% of what we've been told is out there.
That's crazy.
It's pretty wild, right?
So we have discovery of texts written about things.
Yeah.
And we've only put our hands on
thing.
1%.
Yeah.
That's so
Isn't
crazy.
that crazy?
Yeah.
So what's crazy about that with language is because we only know languages exist if they've been written.
That's true.
Or if there's there's like the detective work, but it's also based on what's written.
Yeah.
So if we see like this language and then a completely different language from the same group of people,
Yeah.
well, there's probably a bridge in between
Yeah.
that we just don't have. So we know there's lost language in there somewhere.
Sure.
But we only know the language that was written down first.
Yeah.
And so like there's so much assumption into like, well, what was the first language? But what's interesting is even with that, we can still see a tie together of a pattern that says they all stemmed from one thing.
Okay.
So it's an interesting idea. And I think for me, it brings us into this idea of like, okay, so if we have the same language, it means we came from a similar origin.
Right.
And so it would make sense that we have similar myths or similar histories.
Right.
And we actually see that everywhere.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I mean, and you were talking about like creation.
yeah.
You were talking about that concept, and in the creation story, when Adam is naming the animals, it's really cool because we see, like, I used to think about that, like, why does it say, and then Adam names the animals? I used to think like that doesn't make any, like, it's not that it doesn't make, it just feels, it felt like an aside.
Yeah.
But the thing is if you're paying attention, what just happened is God, how does God create? God creates by naming things into existence.
Yeah.
He speaks it.
Yeah.
And then and then even in John, the Gospel of John, the Word was in the beginning.
Yeah.
And the Word,
that's huge.
Jesus as the Word, in the beginning, it's like there's something around language. There's something around speaking into existence that's critical to who God is, who Jesus is in the creation process, and then also potentially the interaction between God and Adam.
Yeah.
Where if Jesus is the Word that was also in the beginning, then when Adam is creating by naming things, Jesus is present in the Word.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that what Adam is doing with God is not just saying this is a cow.
Yeah.
Instead, he is creating with God. It's showing us that God created man and then said, "Hey man, here's how you create." And let's create together.
Yeah.
And the way he created together was by calling out the animals.
That's cool.
And naming the animals.
And I think it's what's cool about that is we still see evidence of that today.
Yeah.
And it's that I don't have this pleasure yet, but you do, of being a father.
Yes.
And it's like, well, what happened there?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you and your wife created something, and God was a part of that.
Yeah.
By shaping that.
Yeah.
And then what happened after your child was born? You named him.
Right.
And it's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's the picture.
Yeah.
It's man and God creating together, creating order as we represent him.
Yeah. So if we see language in a bunch of other places, or what you're saying is that if a myth is true,
the
myth would show up in other myths.
Yeah.
So in other words, if an event happens, the way that event is said to be fact is if it is witnessed by more than one person, right? So if a myth is true or has truth in it, then the truth that's in the myth will show up in other myths that become witness to the truth that's in the myth itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because that's I love how there's so much just setting this up to get into here, but I think it's so important. And it's like, even when we look at history, it's like, okay, so how do we know history is true? I think there's an assumption that when we see something written, it's like, well, that's true.
Yeah.
But we know from anyone having spent 5 minutes on the internet, there's a lot of untruth on there.
Sure.
There's a lot of lies out there.
Yeah.
That's like, this isn't real.
Yeah.
And so there's the classic saying, which I think is so true. It's history is written by the victors.
Yeah.
I don't know who Victor is, but,
but there must be a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, and they've been writing.
So many victors.
But it's like, and we see that, I think, going back to Egypt, like, they're a great example of that, because their history is heavily edited.
Right.
To make them look as good as humanly possible.
Yeah.
But then we see through history written from other cultures
Sure.
that have a contrary story to what Egypt writes.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, how do we know what's true? Well, because there's other cultures that corroborate the other story.
That's true.
And so it's like, oh, that's how we can determine this. But even then, we still don't 100% know that's what happens.
Yeah.
But the fact that we see multiple people telling the same story, or at least a very similar story,
yeah,
it gives credence to, like, this is most likely what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, and I think one of the things too is like, this is like, I feel like a unique identifier to this podcast is that I feel like sometimes, and maybe this is unique to us, but at least there's two of us. so like what was true for me has also been true for you. But I feel like sometimes people just need a framework.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just need to be able to go like, okay, let me just not write stuff off anymore and go, okay, if myth is the tying together of the natural and the supernatural, that there's typically a supernatural event integrated into that, that's different than fact. Fact is something that is provable and has many witnesses.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is the Genesis account does not fit in that category. So that's one of the difficult things for Christians, I feel like, and that's why this conversation I feel like is so important.
Yeah.
Because just creating the framework and giving framework for going, hey, technically, categorically, the Genesis account is myth.
Yeah.
Categorically.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not true. It's just, it's in the category of myth because I don't know anyone that was there. You don't know anybody that was there. We don't necessarily have any evidence of it other than what we can see around us.
Right.
But the naturalist would say, well, that could be explained in so many different ways because no one was actually there in that event.
Right.
And when that happens, you go, okay, well, right now, this is supernatural. The way the world was created is supernatural because there's not a naturalist explanation for it.
Yeah.
Outside of what the naturalist explanations for it are.
But what's interesting, even with that, they still, in a way, write their own myth that corroborates the story. And one of my favorites is Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
As he was theorizing, because he was more of the belief or leaning toward the idea that the universe was always in existence. It never had a beginning.
Yeah.
And as he continued to theorize and he realized, oh no, it actually points to there was an origin to the universe.
Yeah.
Like it has a starting point. And he was really upset by that. But then he had a friend who was a priest who said, no, actually, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, it kind of helped him in that thinking. But we look at this like, okay, even in a naturalist viewpoint,
sure,
we see that there is something to point to that, like these myths have some merit.
Yeah.
And it's even the idea that there was a starting point.
Yeah.
So yeah, long way to get here.
Well, I guess my question would be like, I feel like that's something that's unique to this podcast. Again, like I just said, is that like we're setting up framework.
Yeah.
So maybe we're in another spot right now where we need to go one more episode. and
You tease me.
and we just need to go, all right, let's jump straight into what are the corroborated myths, and what's the truth that finds its through line through it. Because there are a bunch of key elements through the Genesis account and through Scripture where you go, all right, this is something that doesn't have a naturalist explanation for, or the naturalist explanation, even though it takes faith to believe in it, which is the irony in it, of the naturalist view. In these myths, there are a bunch of different cultures that have the truth in it. And we just need to go through and hit all of those topics.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have time for it on this podcast.
That's what I'm afraid of, Dex. Like, we spent so much time, which I think it's honestly worth it. But I think because that's the thing about it. And I was just talking about this with someone recently, and it's, and I know we've touched on it. I don't know if it was on pod or off pod, but it's the idea of this weird separation that has happened over the years.
Yeah.
Of faith is on this side and science is on this side. Religion's here and science is here.
Yeah.
And they can't mix.
Right.
And then there are even Christians that go as far to argue that it's good.
Yeah.
Because science would only ruin your faith. And it's like, well, no, that's not. And they're like, yeah, you'll never find evidence of creation or like a creation story or anything like that because you need to have faith to believe it.
Yes.
And I don't like that at all. And the reason for that is because these things aren't exclusive from one another.
Right.
It's like, no, they work in tandem. And I think what we've been saying, what we've been setting up, the simple side of it is that's what myth is doing.
Right.
You use the word, it's like that hand-holding between the two.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, of course, if there's supernatural influence on top of a physical thing that happened,
yeah,
well, you would see evidence of the one that we can see.
Right.
Like the one that we can experience with our five senses, we'd be able to find some way to experience it with our five senses.
Sure.
But that doesn't eliminate the fact that there is a supernatural influence into it.
Yeah.
And so it's both those things working together. And I think that's the beauty that myth captures is let me try to explain both of those with one story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's necessary. Like as Christians reading the Bible, I think it's necessary for us to understand these categories.
Yeah.
I think it's necessary for us to dig in and go, okay, what exactly am I reading? When and where did it happen? Who did it happen to? It's the hermeneutic of it.
Yeah.
It's kind of digging in and going, okay, starting place, where are they? Who are they? What's going on here? Right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things in the Bible where you don't have all of those answers. And sometimes the answer is supernatural.
Yeah.
And the Bible will answer itself.
Absolutely.
Which is cool.
And I think we've done a good job of showing that.
Yeah.
In our throughout these episodes.
Yeah.
That these things are like the Bible supports itself.
Yeah.
In that it's consistent throughout in what it talks about.
And I think one of the things that's cool about the current conversation that we're having over multiple episodes is that one of the things that we've seen and one of the things we've talked about and will talk about are the evidences that are natural of the things that did happen in the Scripture.
Yeah.
What we're talking about right now are the evidence of things that did happen in Scripture but are supernatural.
Yes.
And those things necessarily have to be corroborated by not other cultures' facts, but other cultures' myths.
Yeah.
In order to see the consistency of truth written throughout history in other cultures that speak back to this is what's happening in the world, and this is what the one true God says is the actual reality.
Yeah.
Because the truth is if what's happening in the Bible is the actual reality, then it's happening to all people on earth.
Yeah.
And when it's happening to all people on earth, those who do not believe in the one true God, who have other gods that they are interacting with, not that they made up, but that they are interacting with, they have their own myths, and those gods are telling them about how those things happened.
Yeah.
And I think we have to, like, this is the context that I think
Yeah.
that we're really digging into,
Yeah.
which is
And I think it's important.
it is,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, there's plenty of people and there's plenty of things that we can look at and we can go, all right, here's all of the things that actually did happen. Here's this person that lived in this time, and here's a couple of people that wrote about them, historians that wrote about them. They're also in the Bible, right? There's this whole new thing about Shroud of Turin, and like how that's so cool. And then you have Dead Sea Scrolls. There's all these things like that. However, when you jump back and you go, all right, there is the one true God, and then something happened early in Genesis where there are these other spiritual beings that are in and out working through, and they show up all over the earth. And the reason that we know that they show up all over the earth, well, the Bible tells us about it, things like Deuteronomy 32, where they're sent out across the earth in the different territories. But not just that, but we look at the other myths of the people around the world, which we will look at. And when we will look at them, we'll start to see the truths that all happen arguably around the same time to the same people that are all on the earth, who their gods, lowercase g, gods, real gods, but false, are telling them a different truth about the thing that they're physically experiencing. So all these other myths that we're going to get into.
Well, because it is telling that the fact that all of these cultures have a supernatural myth, a story, a telling of history that blends supernatural with physical. The fact that that's like a universal thing.
Right. It's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild.
It is. Yeah, because what's happening is like what's happening is there's a global event. And or let's say there's a regional event, but the regional event is happening amongst
to everybody.
A bunch of different cultures. Not all of them believe in Yahweh. And so the ones that are interacting with their God, who is lower than Yahweh, but is still a real God, is telling them a different story about what's physically happening. So a different supernatural understanding of what's naturally happening. And the truth is, in these myths, we have to tie together all the natural things that are happening with the supernatural explanation being different.
And actually, that's the one thing I will add to what you just said as well. And it's that idea of, because I think it's important when we look at these people, is it's not like, I think it's that word belief right there. It's like they don't believe in Yahweh. It's like, well, it's not they don't believe in Yahweh, they don't worship Yahweh. And I think that's a really important thing with what we're talking about here, to kind of put our mind in a better place, especially with how Scripture refers to it. It's like, well, who do you worship? That's who you're getting your information from.
Who do you love?
I love how you always find a way.
I think that's like a commercial or something.
I think probably. You'll find a song. But I think that's really important with this, where it's like, okay, so here's this thing that seemingly happened to everybody.
Right.
And it's across the globe. Where we see like these people that spread out very far, from Native American tribes to India to, Northern Europe and down in Africa. It's like these people all have shared myths.
Down in Africa.
Bliss and rains. And it's like, well, who do they worship? And that influences their myth, which is a telling of real history through supernatural means.
Supernatural explanation of natural events. That's basically what myths are.
That's it.
Well, Paul, I like your hat.
I like yours too. Dad hat.
Dad hat. All right, so next episode, we're going to jump right into these myths.
We shouldn't make promises we don't know if we can
No,
keep.
we're going to do it. We had to set up myths.
I'm so excited. I was so excited today. But then I was like, no, it's actually good that we waited, because I think it's gonna be that much sweeter. It'll make that much more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because, again, to say it for a third time, this podcast, I feel like one of the things that's important to us is really setting up framework.
Yeah.
Because that's the discussion that's worth having. The discussion that's worth having is, let's define terms. Let's understand what's going on. And the truth is like, once you do that once,
Yeah.
it's simple.
Yeah.
But you have to do it once.
You have to recognize the reality of it.
Yeah, and the problem with people saying, well, it should be simpler than that, is basically saying like, all right, well, this table should just exist. No, you have to go cut down the tree.
Yeah.
You have to mill it. You have to let it dry.
Mm-hmm.
You have to then put it together exactly in the dimensions that you want. You have to sand it. You have to. There's so many. It's
so
not.
much work.
All of the pieces are simple.
Yeah.
You do this. You do this. You do this. The problem is modern Christians want to just have the table.
Yeah.
And they need the framework to know how we got to the table.
Yeah.
And the problem with modern Christians and modern discipleship is that we're just trying to, in churches, in Sunday schools, in whatever we're doing, we're just trying to go, here's the table. Let me explain it to you in a way that like, I'll just, here you're sitting at the table.
Yeah.
But what discipleship should be is, come with me out to the woods. Let's find a tree.
Yeah.
Let me show you how to cut it down.
Yeah.
Then we're going to do the next step. And then that's what discipleship should look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna do every step together.
Yeah.
So I feel like on Martyr's Row, we're doing every step together.
That's what we love.
Yeah.
And that's part of that's who we are. That's what we like.
Yeah, it's true. So next time, we're gonna jump right into the myths.
We're going myth corner.
Myth corner. See you then. 3, 2, 1.